Hello, I'm Charlie Brooker, and welcome to So Wrong It's Right, a panel show devoted to Britain's favourite subject, failure. The aim of the game is to answer questions about wrongness as entertainingly as possible. Now, Winston Churchill once said, "Courage is the ability to go from one failure to the next without losing enthusiasm," which makes Lembit Opik the bravest man of all time. Some things are such immense failures they become synonymous with calamity. Almost 100 years after it sank, we still talk about disasters of titanic proportions. In much the same way, future generations will describe a failing politician as making an absolute clegg of things. It's said that to truly appreciate success, we must first recognise failure. So please recognise my guests, Rufus Hound, Fergus Craig and Sharon Horgan. The first round is called Wrong Time, Wrong Place, and in it I'll be asking my guests to delve into their calamitous past in an attempt to outwrong each other with stories from their own feeble and frankly dismal little lives. This week I've asked them to tell me about the worst thing that's ever happened to them in their own homes. Magazines like Hello and OK consist almost entirely of celebrities showing you around their incredible homes. I never thought where I lived was that notable, but recently my bedroom, bathroom and lounge were photographed for a prestigious 6-page feature in the Journal of Mental Health Research. TV property shows can make almost anyone jealous. Whenever I watch Grand Designs, I'm utterly consumed with envy. I mean, Kevin MacLeod only has to walk around in a hard hat for an afternoon, do a Ponzi piece to camera at the end, and he gets paid thousands. I have to sit in a drafty hall talking to you lot in exchange for a bag of chips and a can of Tango. It is criminal. Anyway, Rufus, you look like somebody who's had terrible things befall you in your own home. Which is the worst?
Well, recently in bed, I realised that nothing I do can guarantee that my children will outlive me.
Any less bleak
Or were
thoughts?
you... Oh, right. Well, I did smash myself in the head with a crowbar. I was in the loft. The aperture to get in and out of the loft was too small to put anything bigger than a mouse or a mouse's house or a dream in or out of our loft. So, being relatively handy, I climbed up there with a saw and a hammer and some wood, and I made the hole to get in and out of our loft bigger. I didn't do a brilliant job, Charlie, I'm not going to lie. So before I paid a Polish man to come and fix it, I thought I'd better get rid of a lot of the evidence of how much I'd tried and failed. And I'd banged a nail into a bit of wood, so I got a crowbar, and this thing was in there, man. Woo! I literally had my foot up on a wall, using the leverage from this crowbar to pull this nail out. When, with every ounce of strength in my entire body, I smashed myself in the head with the crowbar. And something quite weird happens at that point. You think, is this how I die? I was so confused, because it was a proper, like, steel crowbar. So when I did it, it went... Bang. It turned out it was absolutely fine. Like, I had a very, very small scar on my forehead. The worst thing about smashing yourself in the head with a crowbar is you are never not a person after that moment who has smashed themselves in the head with a crowbar. When I'm talking to other people, somebody will say to me, do you think I should get, a fixed-rate mortgage or a tracker mortgage, or, do you think, she's really the one? Do you think we should call our children after fictional characters from books by Tolkien? Well, I just think, don't take my advice, because I'm a man who has smashed himself in the head with a crowbar.
Do you think when you went to the DIY shop, they looked at you and thought, he probably will smash himself in the head with a crowbar, so they gave you like a trainer?
But I think they may have thought, well, he looks like the sort of bloke who would smash himself in the head with a crowbar, but we've seen his work on Outtake TV, and that, frankly, is all it deserves.
I've kicked myself in the head with a bench.
Oh, that's bad.
I had a bench that was in my bedroom when I was a kid, and I had a sort of bunk bed thing, and I jumped out of the bed and landed on one end of the bench and saw the other end of the bench coming up. And it's interesting, and I wonder if this happened when you smash yourself in the head with a crowbar. You see it coming towards you in slow motion.
Yeah.
In that moment, did the calculation. I was only a kid, but I thought, this is coming at me with the full force. The same force with which I've hit it.
My weight plus gravity, yeah. That's your friend.
It's not as good as that. I know someone who nearly took his eye out pulling a towel out of a washing machine. It got caught on the drum. He should have just left it.
Sharon.
You know when you go out and you're socialising and you meet someone and you like them and you think, I'd like to continue this conversation at home. So you bring them back. And,
to your lair.
To your lair. And yeah, I remember meeting someone in a pub and you know, getting on quite well and deciding to bring him home and, you know, just to chat more. And I went off to get some drinks, and when I came back, he was asleep on the toilet. And I thought, well, you know, maybe he was just a bit tired and he also really needed to go to the toilet. And then I realised I'd just brought home a really, really drunk man. So
we had a good night, though.
Yeah. but I've actually got a better one, because I was talking to my friend about bad things that have happened in your home, and a chap he lived with, his flatmate, used to bring people home all the time, like waifs and strays. And one night he brought home an old man.
Was he collecting people?
Yeah. And my friend was like, oh, I'm not really happy about that. But then he saw he had a bottle of whiskey and he thought, well, that's good. You know, he's brought a bottle of whiskey. So he stayed up and he drank it with him, and then he went to bed. In the middle of the night, something just made him wake up, and the old man was in his bed and he was kissing him. He told him to get out of his... He said, get out of my bed. And he went, get into your bed? And he went, no, get out. And he sent him out of the room and he went back to sleep. And then he suddenly jumped out of his skin and thought, his flatmate. And he went into his flatmate's room and the old man was in his bed. Playing exactly the same trick.
Fergus, you've heard what the others have to say. What's the worst thing that's occurred to you in the home?
When I was a student in Manchester, I lived in a properly horrible student hovel. It was like genuinely £20 a week. And when we arrived there to move in, the door was open, like it had just been left open for the whole summer.
You said that it was just open for anyone.
I don't even mean it was unlocked. I mean it was open. Like the last people to live there had just thought, well, there's no point.
There's nothing worth taking.
Because if a homeless person arrived looking for shelter, then they'd look around and go, no, I'd rather sleep on the street. It was properly horrible, and a lot of horrible things happened there. And one night, my friend woke up in the middle of the night with a cat on his face. And if you owned a cat, that would be scary. If you didn't own a cat, that would be genuinely terrifying. One morning I woke up, it was probably afternoon, and I heard like a rustling, and I turned over and there was a mouse going in and out of a bag of quavers on my floor. This gives a real insight into the sort of person I was then. I turned back over and went back to sleep and just left it.
I thought you were going to say you finished the quavers.
No, I would have done it if it was skips.
Other snacks are available. That reminds me, when I was a student, I lived in a house. It was a flat in Battersea, and I remember waking up one day and there was water dripping from the ceiling and sort of landing sort of around my stomach area. And I was so tired, I just thought, I'm going to ignore it. And I sort of went back to sleep, and then it was moving up my body. It was dripping on my chest. And then it started dripping on my face. Right? And I just thought, I'm just going to move my head. So I just moved my head to a different bit of the pillow. And then my pillow started getting really soaked, at which point I thought, wait a minute, I'm not on the top floor of this building. This isn't coming from the roof, this is coming from... And the layout of these flats is all the same. This is coming from the toilet of the flat upstairs. And it was a toilet leaking on my face, which I tried to ignore for the best part of an hour. So I can relate to your... I mean, I suppose...
Ask you a question, Charlie.
Yeah.
Before that instant, were you a man of quite a sunny disposition?
I was, yeah. Okay, well, so you've all entertained me with some appalling tales of disgusting things that have happened to you. I think I'm going to give the point to Rufus, though, for smashing himself in the face with a crowbar. Well done. Now, our next round is called Do Your Worst. It's a test of my guests' capacity for creative wrongdoing. This week, I've asked them to dream up a terrible idea for a new computer game. I've played video games for years. Scientists claim they restrict creative thought. I can't even begin to imagine why they say that. Games get a lot of stick, but they can be brilliant at helping the human mind solve problems. Problems like, what can I possibly do for 7 hours that won't involve having to speak to anyone? One problem with games is they're addictive but frivolous. The other day I was playing Angry Birds, firing little red sparrows at green pigs, and suddenly I had an epiphany and I thought, wait a minute, what benefit am I actually getting from this? It's a stupid world that doesn't even exist. So I switched it off and I picked up a good book, and I spent 6 hours reading about a hobbit with a magic ring. Games are more social than they used to be. There's one which has got literally millions of people taking part at the same time. They've all got little meaningless tasks to do, and if they put in a lot of effort, they can buy better costumes and a bigger house, which is a bit sad, really, because it's ultimately pointless. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called World of Capitalism. Worst computer game you can think of? I'll start with you, Fergus.
The only computer game that I play anymore is Football Manager. When you get to buy and sell players and choose the tactics, and when I win, I feel like a really worthwhile human being. People go on about how realistic it is. It's not. You ask them, how did you do in it? I won the Champions League. What team were you? Torquay United. But my idea for a bad computer game would be Football Player Liaison Officer. If you don't know what a player liaison officer is, they're the people who have to look after the millionaires and help them with any problem. Genuinely, Alan Goma was a player who played for Fulham a few years ago, and he made an emergency call to his player liaison officer to say that his goldfish was swimming in the wrong direction.
And this had frightened him.
Yeah. So the officer had to go around and sort that out quickly. There was another player...
This is a brilliant game.
Yeah. Well, my idea would be, if you played the game, it would pop up on your screen, it's 4 a.m, Craig Bellamy has lost his car keys, and then you just have to take quite a mundane drive to his house, and you'd have to help him, you'd have to go round his, awful mock Tudor mansion and help him look for his keys while he moaned at you about why he was underrated.
The
thing is, this is basically...
to book the cars for the girls the next morning. The girls they don't want to.
I guess that's
see
part
10
of
minutes
the.
after.
That would be Football Player Liaison Officer Nights. It's rated.
What you've inadvertently come up with is a brilliant idea for a game. Sharon, what would your video game?
I know absolutely nothing about video games, but I kind of thought, that if you can learn something from them and they're practical, that my game should be like that, as well as being rubbish. So everyone seems to want women to breastfeed. The ones who have babies.
Sorry, that was quite a leap.
Wait.
Just trying to... Okay.
Everyone seems to want women to breastfeed.
Why aren't you doing it now?
So I thought, and it's a bit of a leap you have to take once you have your baby. So I thought, if there was a game that was specifically aimed at pregnant women that they could play while they were pregnant, it would give them a bit of a head start. Your avatar or character, yeah. Your character would be a baby, and then you'd have to suck as much milk out of the boobs
No.
Wait, as you can.
You've got this the wrong way round.
Really?
Well, in this day and age, surely you've seen the Nintendo Wii. You stand in front of and you make actions, which in a rock band, you've seen all of that, where you play the guitar. Well, presumably they could come out with a game where there's a thing that connects to your console with a suction cup that you put on, and it suckles away. So I
don't know where the game is there. Do you? That's just... The thing is that there's got to be challenges along the way, like you get bonus points for colostrum, or if there's a bit of mastitis, maybe that you get a bonus point there. And you have to get it all done before the midwife comes along and tells you you're rubbish at it.
Is there really? I mean, a midwife comes along and says you're not doing it right.
Yeah, yeah.
What is
Even if you're doing it right.
What exactly goes wrong?
You're not holding. They want you to kind of hold your baby like that, and you don't want to walk around holding
Which I know
your
you
baby.
can't see on the radio.
You can't see on the. Oh, yeah.
Sharon's just done almost exactly the power enabling move from Guitar Hero.
Well, so this is the thing. You want a plastic baby that connects to the Xbox or the PlayStation that you let suckle on.
I think you're right.
And a midwife shouts at you and says, "You're doing it wrong.
I think.
Level up."
Yeah, I think practically
That's lactating. That's what it's called. Rufus, I sense that you're a bit of a nerd.
Yeah, I mean, I've gamed. Sure, I have. But it got me thinking, what would be the worst possible video game? Now, gamers are very familiar with what are termed first-person shooters, from Wolfenstein 3D to Call of Duty. They're some of the most popular and played games in video game history. So I've developed something I'm referring to as the third-person shooter, which is a game that has already been played, and your console just tells you about it. It's called, you should have seen it, man. It was like, wow.
So it's basically an Andy McNabb book.
Yeah. So there was this bloke, and he turned up, and it was all snowing, and he went through a door. And then there were like these 4 blokes who came in, and he shot the first one, the second one shot him, he ducked behind a door, then he shot the other guy twice, but he got shot himself. It was well sketchy. Then he got in a car, and he drove. He wasn't very good at the driving. He was crashing. Oh, you should have seen it, man. It was like, wow. And the thing is, at no point do you press any buttons or do anything.
I've got an Xbox system which watches you. It watches you and it recognises. It's terrifying. And I was watching a film on it, because you can watch films on it. And I said something, and it popped up saying, "Oh, do you want me to eject the disc?" And I had to sort of turn to my wife and go, "Oh, shh, sorry, we have to be quiet because the Xbox is listening." But it is this sort of big glowing eye over the television.
Can you turn that?
I've invited this into my home. I don't know what's wrong with me. There's a dancing game. You can imagine how good I am at that. And there's an exercise game that you do, and it shows you are there on the screen. You see yourself on the screen. It's making you do all the... And I did it naked, and it's terrifying. It's genuinely the most terrifying, because there's things that move around and sort of get in the way. It's the most harrowing. If anyone was recording it, I would have to commit suicide. It'd be worse than the worst internet pornography involving yourself that could show up. I'm blue and glowing and naked and sort of doing squat thrusts.
But that was your decision to do it naked.
Yes, it was my decision to do it. OK, so, in terms of terrible computer games, Fergus, you've suggested the player liaison officer. These are impressively rubbish ideas. Sharon, the breastfeeding game, simulator, I suppose, and Rufus, the third-person shoot-'em-up with absolutely no player activity whatsoever. I think I'm going to have to give it to Sharon's breastfeeding game. It's terrible. OK, so this round 3, is called This Putrid Modern Hell, and it's devoted to the biggest wrongs from the modern world. I'll be asking each of my guests to nominate the thing they hate most about contemporary life, and my favourite answer wins a point. Some of the greatest inventions of modern times were created by mistake. Viagra, Velcro and Vaseline were all discovered by accident. I, however, combined them on purpose during the most erotically charged yet lonely and thought-provoking afternoon of my life. I'm grateful to exist in this modern technological era. If I was doing this radio show in medieval times, they'd kill me for being a wizard. Modern language has been altered by modern technology. You can communicate many different sentiments using simple acronyms. LOL, OMG, ROFL. Different collections of letters. Ultimately, they all broadly mean the same thing. I'm a deeply annoying person. Or IDAP. Anyway, Sharon, what annoys you most about the modern world?
Oh, this is going to sound all wrong. I don't mean it to. Too many old people.
Yeah, that sounds pretty monstrous.
No,
as a
but
policy.
I mean really old people. I mean, you know, what might be termed super old people. You know, it's just, we don't live in a society that makes life nice for old people. When they get to a certain age, we don't, like, give them a special jewelled cushion and free stout and, you know, a Cala gas heater that never runs out. I just think there's no need to live as long as some people are living. What's in it for the old people? You know, it's not like...
Life?
Well, no. We don't
Continued existence, you monster! What you could have said was, well, I think the thing that annoys me about modern life is that we're just not nice enough to older people. But instead what you said is, there's too many of them.
Yeah. I was trying to be humorous. I should have stuck with my original answer, which was Hare Krishnas, but I couldn't connect it with the modern world.
What, so hang on. What, so you were going to have it in for Hare Krishnas, but instead you thought you'd kick a few old people around, because they're an easy target. Let's keep it light. Fergus, what annoys you about the modern realm?
I quite like modern life. It seems all right. It seems better than the Middle Ages. Probably the best time to be alive. I don't like, though, the obsession with health. It seems quite modern. We go on and on, or at least the media do, about how we should all be healthy. They keep going on about how we drink too much. I think people used to drink more. I don't know. I like drinking, and I don't like being told that I drink too much.
That's the thing with you
Stop
drunks.
telling me I drink too much. I don't think I've got a drink problem, though. I think you've got a drink problem if you see a tramp on the street and he's got a can of special brew and you can smell it on him and you think, I quite fancy a pint. Or if you're finding it difficult to spit out mouthwash, maybe you've got a drink problem.
OK, so basically you're annoyed by the emphasis on health.
Yeah.
You realise you're trying to win a point from a man who, within the week, has been doing naked squat thrusts.
Not this week. No, I haven't gone back to it. It remembers when you haven't done it as well. When you switch it back on, it sort of says, where were you?
Oi! Oi, Tubbs!
Everyone used to die when they were 40, and as Sharon just said, now everyone's living longer. But they're trying to make us live even longer and longer and longer. It's not right.
What's the cut-off point? Do you think? I'm 39 and I'm going to be 40 in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's the cut-off point.
Is that my lot?
Yeah.
It feels like it.
I think when you stop feeling sexy.
No, come on, but hang on. There wasn't a point where I started feeling sexy.
It's when you start feeling sexy, then you've obviously you're suffering from dementia.
Is that just aimed at me?
No.
Just me personally. When I start feeling sexy, that means I'm beyond any help. Is that what you're saying?
I just happened to be looking at you when I said it.
Rufus, what annoys you about the modern world?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Charlie Brooker.
Really?
Yeah. Because there was a time where
here we go.
I felt quite alone in my hatred of everything. And thought that I was the only one who could see where it was all falling down. And then I started getting The Guardian on a Saturday. Everything I'd shouted at the TV was written better than I'd thought it. That was quite annoying. And then I realised this fellow was also writing about sort of social issues during the week in The Guardian. And that he was pretty much getting that bang on as well. And where I'd sort of tried to express the same ideas to my friends in the pub, they weren't really thought through, whereas this guy seemed to really be on top of it. And it's just that kind of frustration of being aware of somebody who's always beating you to the punch, like that kid who's slightly better than everybody else at school. And then I eventually got to the point where I was building some sort of TV career, and this weasel, this absolute weasel, whose job was basically gamekeeper, had turned hunter, and he suddenly wanted to be on the telly himself. Oh, what? Not happy enough sniping from the sidelines. Now we want the spotlight too, do we? And it starts off on BBC4, which is sort of forgivable because nobody's really watching that. But no, he's built a cult appeal. And then before you know where it is, he's on billboards with a haircut that I can only imagine is an ironic counterpoint to the modern notion of show business. So I'm going for Charlie Brooker.
Well, you know what, Rufus? I don't know. I don't think it's fair to single me out as something you hate about the modern world.
OK, I'll tell you something else I hate about you. The first time I ever met Charlie, I asked him about Dead Set. The thing that you have to understand about zombie movies is that they're all allegories. They're all parables. They are all the sheeple, the followers, and then the good people will survive the sheeple. That's basically it. And I watched Dead Set, and it's one of the bleakest things I've ever seen in my entire life. When it got to the end of it, I sat motionless, staring out of a window. I had to go and have a shower to warm my soul. That is genuinely true. That is how much that affected me. And months later, when I eventually met Charlie, I said to him, so, am I right? Is that what Dead Set is about? It's basically the allegory that reality television poisons us all, because if we buy into it, we're manipulated. If we're on the shows, we're manipulated. We are all manipulated by the notion of reality and what we're being sold as reality. And he looked me in the eye and he went, it's just about zombies.
That's true. That's true. That'll learn you. OK, so the things you hate most about the modern world. Fergus, it's healthy living in general. The emphasis on health.
The nannying, possibly.
The nannying.
Yeah.
The nannying. Sharon, it seems you hate society's treatment of old people. And Rufus, you've gone for me.
Yep.
Basically. You know what? I'm going to give... I can't award me a point, so I'm going to give it to Fergus. Now, our final round, I'll be asking my guests a series of quick-fire questions. As always, the wrongest answer to each one wins a point. So, what is the worst way to dump someone?
You're dumped.
It was quite jolly, though.
I thought etching it on the inside of their irises with a laser. Sod off. Every time they blinked, there'd be a cruel reminder of a loved dead.
And that's going to follow them around for the rest of their lives. That's particularly unpleasant, isn't it?
Well, I believe you were asking for the worst way to dump someone.
I keep overlooking that fact, that format point. Right? I think I'm going to give Fergus a point for that. That noise means we've reached the end of the show, making Fergus this week's worst contestant. Commiserations to Rufus and Sharon. That's the end of the show. Go away.